What's going on, everyone? Alex Schlinsky here for the Anti-Hustler Weekly Show. Today, we want to help you make more profit, but making more profit by actually understanding the data behind how to run a better business. So we are joined by a special guest, Mikael Dia of Funnelytics. We are so excited. As always, though, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Brian Downard. How are you doing today, buddy?
Living the dream.
Heyo. We are excited to share this amazing session with you. Mikhail and actually have spoken with me a couple years back, talking to me about Funnelytics, and watching the ascension of his business over the last few years has been amazing. We're really excited to have him on the show today to help you maximize your profits through data-driven decisions. Mikhail, why don't you get started just telling us who you are, what Funnelytics is about, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, guys. Much appreciated. I'm looking forward to sharing as much as I can and having a lot of fun. So a little bit about me. My name is Mikael Dia. I am based out of just outside of Toronto here, Canada. I'm a kind of digital marketer by I guess skill, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've been building businesses for a long time, and my main company that I've been running since 2018 is Funnelytics. And basically what we do is we help you visualize how people come to your websites, or if you're an agency, how they go to your clients' websites, and the funnels and the journeys that they take. And then we overlay all of the numbers and all the data to show you the bottlenecks and kind of this really cool visual canvas. So that is fundamentally what our software company does. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I did a little bit more of a deep dive on Funnelytics.io's website. We'll share with you guys all the link a little later. And it is amazing because I have heard of you guys over the past few years and seeing, what it was versus where it is now. The journey is really amazing. I'll speak for Alex and myself on this one just because I hang out with them way too much. But we're not numbers people by nature. We tend to tell ourselves that too, and maybe it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy of this belief. People like, oh, I'm not good at numbers. Like I'm not a numbers person. And maybe
Sure.
it's just because I hang out with people who aren't all numbers people. But I don't know. What do you find in terms of people? Do more people tend to be numbers driven or less numbers driven? And how does someone who's not numbers driven, more importantly, what would you tell them? Why is this important? Why should they be bought into getting better at numbers and not just shrugging it off?
Yeah, I mean, simply put, you like money? I mean, that's the easiest answer that I can give you is, do you
I like
enjoy
that. I like
making?
that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't mince words. Yeah,
Hey, money is numbers at the end of the day, and everything that
sure.
we do is a numbers game. Numbers tell you whether you're doing better or worse, you have room for improvement or not, where there's opportunity for growth. At the end of the day, everything we do should be data driven. The challenge, like you said, is, well, being data driven means we have to use our left brain. And most of us didn't like math. It's at school. Most of us basically shied away from that stuff. And it was like, I don't like spreadsheets or charts or graphs, or I'd much rather pull up a whiteboard and draw some pictures and some ideas. And that's our right brain, right? We use our right brain to kind of do any of that creative thinking. So one of the things that you have to ask yourself is, okay, well, I know I need to be data driven in order to get some understanding of whether or not my strategy and what I'm creating out there is actually working, right? It's like, give you an example. Look at Mr. Beast, at the YouTuber. Well, it's great that you create all these YouTube videos, but at some stage you're going to have to want to see that, okay, people are watching these videos and those numbers are going up and the trends are going in the right direction. Again, the challenge though is that we have to use kind of two separate brains to make this happen. And one of the reasons why we built Funnelytics was, how do we merge these two things, right? So even though we look at pictures and we think in pictures, how do we take these pictures and put a story behind them that is ultimately driven by data? Because that's, at the end of the day, what we're trying to understand is our strategy and all the stuff that we're putting out there working? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
100%.
100%. And Alex, you think you had a question, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to bridge the gap here also, because I think one of the things, as someone that would be a pre-prescribed or self-prescribed not numbers person, right? I'm definitely a right brain person. When someone talks to me about the concept of being data driven, I'm already of the knowledge of I need to do this, right? I think when people listen to this podcast, there's two kind of separate buckets. They're like, oh, I need to do this, and then I need to do this, meaning there is knowledge already, and then there's ignorance to it. For those that we are now unveiling, right, this need, right, you need to be data driven, because the more data driven you are, the better understanding you have of KPIs, the better decisions you can make, the better projections you can make, the more clear you can be on what it's actually going to happen when you're making money, right? What happens for the people, though, that don't have someone on their team currently set up to be the numbers person? Like, how does Funnelytics bridge that gap for maybe a smaller agency that doesn't right now have someone that is able to read that data? How do you guys at Funnelytics make it easier for a layman to go in and get the data they need in a simple way?
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem that we face as a society, especially in the marketing space, especially in the online business space, is we are inundated with data, right? We have all sorts of metrics. We have bounce rates and views and click-through rates and earnings per click and cost per click, and we have email open rates and this and that. And it's like, okay, what am I supposed to look at? And what is it that I'm actually supposed to get a sense of? And I think the biggest challenge that we face is that we overcomplicate this when we're trying to get an answer to our question. The simplest way I can give you an idea as to what you should be looking at and what you should be thinking about is this concept of contribution. All you really want to understand is the effort that I'm putting in, are the ads, the videos, the pages, the blogs, the content, the assets that I'm creating. Is it contributing to somebody becoming a customer within my ecosystem, right? So I just need my data and my dashboard, or in our case with Funnelytics, our canvas, because we make it visual. I just want to get a sense of, does this thing contribute to somebody doing something else, right? And that's really what makes Funnelytics simple, is that it creates this idea of, okay, we're going to get away from all of these numbers. We're going to go down to the core, which is a person, and a person does stuff within our ecosystem. They go to our pages, they watch a video, they click a button, they fill out a form. And I just want to understand, out of all of these people that come to my website, out of all these people that interact with my stuff, what exactly are they doing that is contributing to them converting, right? And that's what Funnelytics allows you to visualize. And that's the key behind our tool. Is it's not just about taking numbers and putting them in a dashboard. It's about the people behind your business. One of the things that I always want to think about is less about the dollars and cents, less about understanding revenue and spend, and more understanding who is the actual person behind this. What are they doing? Did they read that blog post that I put up in order for them to then become a customer? Did they watch that video? And by visualizing that, that's when you start to get a clear picture, right? You now can see it. Oh, okay, cool. Like, the people who ended up making this purchase, these are the things that they went and did, and these are the sequences that they went and did it. So can I do that more often and do less of the stuff that isn't driving that conversion or driving that person to do these things?
Yeah, and I love it because you kind of connected the dots to my next question, in terms of like, how do people keep this simple? Because once you acknowledge, like, okay, I need to be data driven, I'm starting to get my numbers set up. There tends to be, especially when we're not numbers driven, maybe it's just me speaking from experience, this not even desire, but this tendency to overdo it and maybe track a bunch of things that aren't super important. So I know it's going to vary based on how people are doing their marketing. But in your opinion, what are some things that are clear vanity metrics that, hey, maybe we could track it, but it's not the most important thing, versus like a key performance indicator that is actually like, hey, what is our cost per acquisition? Like, as the most central number of our marketing is how much are we spending to get one customer? Obviously, that number is important to know. So what would you say are some other things that like are absolute must consider, must look at, versus like people are kind of kidding themselves a little bit, you don't really need to look at that, or it's not as important?
Yeah. So let's take it back. The first thing that okay, well, at the very top is how much did I spend and how much did I make, right? Like that's
Yeah.
always going to be my very top level metrics when it comes to marketing and when it comes to basically understanding, my return and all of that stuff. However, what we tend to do is we tend to look at it in terms of, again, spend and revenue, as opposed to looking at customers, as opposed to looking at the individual people. Okay, so if we were to take it down to the individual person and start thinking about them as opposed to the dollars that they spend or how much we spend as a company in order to advertise to that person. Okay, now we can go and say, well, what does a person actually do? There are really three things that a person does. They come to your website from some sort of traffic source, right? Facebook ad, a Google ad, maybe it's Google organic, maybe it's social media. There's some sort of source that says, hey, I'm a business and I have this product or I have this thing, so come check us out, right? Then they eventually go and visit different pages. So that's the second thing. They travel around your site. They look at your landing page and they go to the next page or whatever. They navigate around your blog, etc. So they visit these pages. And then the third thing is they do specific actions on your site. Now, there are two types of kind of actions that we kind of tend to look at. Number one is something that shows that they're engaging with our stuff. So they're clicking a button, they're watching a video, they're scrolling on my page, for example, right? They're spending time on this page. These are what we call engagement actions. And then there's what we call conversion actions, something that shows me that they're now showing more and more and more interest in what we do. So they go from being this random visitor to my site to them filling out a form and being a lead, right? Or filling out an order form and making a purchase and being a customer, or maybe filling out a calendar and actually scheduling a call. So those are kind of the three core buckets. You've got sources, you've got pages, and then you've got actions that they do on these things. And those actions can be divided into engagement actions, I'm engaging with your stuff, or
Sure.
Conversion actions. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so now all we want to better understand is how are any of these touch points, any one of these things, contributing to the main conversion action that I care about? That's it, right? So does a video contribute to somebody making a purchase? If that's what I'm trying to optimize for, is I want purchases. Does this particular page contribute to somebody making a purchase? Does this traffic source? So all I'm trying to do is tie back to this person, their timeline, and understand that timeline. What I don't care about is a bounce rate on a page. Why? Who cares? All I want to understand is, well, fine, there's a whole bunch of people that came on my website and a bunch of them bounced, but did the ones who didn't bounce actually convert and become customers? Because if they did, then that's a good thing, right? So I don't care about the 96% that bounced. I care about the fact that there's 4% that actually went and gone through. What is the similarities of that 4%? Can I get more of those 4%? Right? What is the thing behind those people? So instead of thinking, oh, great, I'm looking at this, I'm seeing 96% bounce rate, I want to bring that down from 96 to 90. Well, that's the wrong approach. Instead, you should say, well, how do I get more of that 4%? And what is the commonalities of those 4%, right? And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is bring it back to the individual person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's funny because you use the example specifically of bounce rate as maybe something that is more of a vanity metric or not as important to measure. And it's really funny because I hung my hat when I used to make more websites on like this idea of reducing their bounce rate, which sounds sexy and fun in marketing. But yeah, when you explain it in that sense, it makes a lot of sense. And just this idea too of before I kick it over to Alex, what you said to me that's really interesting is the idea of engagement metrics, right? Where at first glance, it may feel like those are vanity metrics are not the most important thing to track. But what's so interesting is when people are online, you only see through the lens of they hit the page and then did they buy or opt in. You don't always get to see on the inside of why they didn't opt in potentially. So I love that. I'm glad the platform does that. And Alex, I think you have one more quick question before we hop over to, I'd love to do a demo, just get a good case use, like how people are doing this. But Alex, you can go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I want to know from your opinion, Mikael, because it's so cool what you're talking about. I see two different use cases. I'm just wondering what you see being the most consistent use case. Is the use
Yeah.
case better for internal marketing teams to kind of identify, like through CRO, like conversion rate optimization, page optimization, funnel optimization internally to get better results for the client so that we kind of keep it simple to the client? Or is it also as a leverage point where we're like actually sharing to the client themselves? These are all the little things that we're seeing, like data driven, or is it kind of case by case basis? I'm interested to know if you see it more kind of used only internally or used as a retention tool to like, look at all this cool stuff we're seeing and showing you how we're on the cutting edge. I could see it both ways.
And you're talking about Funnelytics specifically in this case, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a very interesting question, and it's something that we've kind of realized as a company. Who is this really for? And you're 100% right. On the agency side or the service provider side, it's a unique value proposition. It's an advantage that I have by basically being able to go to my client and showing them, hey, here's our strategy that we want to deploy for you. And then more importantly, here's how our efforts and our strategy is actually contributing to the results that you care about, right? So it's a communication tool in that particular manner. But that's really, really important just beyond Funnelytics as a whole. Just thinking about this specifically for agencies, you need to be able to communicate to your client your value. Because as an agency right now, you're a commodity. Most agencies have become commoditized. I can go on Upwork right now and find somebody to do Facebook ads for like $5 an hour, all the way up to $500 an hour. And I can find people to build pages for me and to do SEO and all of these things, right? There's thousands of people. On top of that, I can go on Udemy and I can find courses on how to be a Facebook ad manager for free. So it's become this commodity where digital marketing is now just a service and it's based on hourly effort. The only way to bring it back to increasing the value that you have as an agency is to tie it back to results, to basically say, I'm not here to basically come in and just do marketing for you. I'm here to build a system that's going to get you the result that you care about, which typically is one of those conversion actions, a call scheduled, a form filled out, or some sort of purchase, right? Especially in the digital world. We send people offline into a physical business, separate type of conversion action. But my job then as an agency is, how do I communicate that to my client? How do I stand out and communicate it to my client? Knowing that ultimately my client is visual, right? So that's where Funnelytics becomes really cool, is because I can now show it on a canvas. Here's my strategy. And then I can show on that canvas, that same canvas, here's the results, right? Here's what's happening. Here's how my efforts are contributing to these things. And here's what we're going to do next to optimize. As a business, though, I'm less concerned about communicating that. Maybe if I'm the digital marketing manager of a company and I want to speak to my boss and all that stuff. But more importantly, usually when it's an internal process, I'm looking at the bigger strategy. I'm looking at all of our efforts, and I want to understand how everything that we do is ultimately driving results, and what are our opportunities for optimization? What are our levers that we can pull in order to drive more growth? So you're right, it can be approached from both angles. At the end of the day, it's still about visualizing and understanding what's working versus what's not.
I particularly love, Mikael, the concept of being the commodity, because one of the main questions consistently asked in a sales positioning is like, what makes you different? And the reality comes down to that there's very few things that make you different, right? In the industry as a whole, there's been certain small things that have made people different, right? Utilization of certain platforms, utilization or like clarification of understanding how to do Google or Facebook or TikTok better, adopting something early like AI or something of that nature. But there's also very just transparently few things that a standard prospect will be able to really dictate like what makes you different. showcasing something like Funnelytics live on a sales conversation is an immediate differentiating factor by saying, we use this tool to prove to you and showcase to you exactly where in the process we're leveraging the most effective tests, so you can see consistently how we're doing the work internally and not just kind of hoping and praying that it's working. And we also use it internally to make sure that we're optimizing and making a better experience. And I'll show a quick example as a juxtaposition, because we're about to do the demo. And I think as a juxtaposition, like, one of the tools that we arm our clients with, Mikael, is like this reporting agenda, right? 7 steps to report. And it's just a Google document where you send a Loom video and you showcase them the important metrics, recent optimizations, etc. This is used, Mikael, obviously as a differentiating factor versus, maybe a crazy spreadsheet or something of that nature. Whereas what Mikael's about to show is significantly greater than that SOP, because you can show them a visual component that's going to allow them to, one, in the sales process, feel, well, there's clearly a discrepancy between this company and the 40 companies I've spoken with that don't have a Funnelytics-like product. And during retention, feeling comfortable that this company that I paid money to is actually doing the things they promised because they're showing it to me visually. And I think that's really a huge value add that Funnelytics has. So let's take a look at it. Let's see what that process looks like.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let me just share my screen super quick. Give me a sec here to make sure that I have this all on.
Yeah, and again, well, I'm a horse of the idea of connecting the right and left brain, and making it visual for people. It makes data a lot more accessible, in my opinion, and then just empowers us that much further. So let's break it down. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, cool. So look, the first thing that you have to understand is, okay, I want to understand the strategy, right? So first, let's approach this from an agency's perspective, because at the end of the day, let's start with an agency, right? Because I don't know why. We'll go from there. And
That's
then
the majority of our audience. They'll appreciate
there you go.
it.
So again, the idea should be, well, if I'm an agency, my goal is to showcase to my client a strategy that I'm about to deploy for them. My goal as an agency is not to own their entire marketing. That's me being a fractional CMO and basically owning everybody's, this business's entire thing. But what I should be thinking about is, what are the different things that I'm going to be building for my client, and can I show them how that's going to contribute to the results? So let's assume that, like I mentioned to you before, there's sources that we can look at. So Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, etc. There are the different pages that we can build for people. And then there's, of course, the actions that we care about. So a purchase or any sort of like video view, scroll, button click, a form, etc. So what I can do with Funnelytics is I can start to map that, right? Now, just doing something like this is going to explain to my client what it is that I'm ultimately trying to do. So we're going to run some Google ads, some Google organic, some affiliates. We're going to build these pages for you, all the way to trying to get people to this order form over here. And then when they go to this order form, we eventually want them to, make a purchase, for example, right? So this is my strategy. This is what we're doing as a whole. Well, what Funnelytics allows me to do is then overlay my data. So the first way I'm going to overlay my data is in a way that everybody understands, which is just red, yellow, green colors. Hey, Mr. Client, look, here's what's happening. We're getting people to flow through this right now, and people are getting to this purchase. I've got to refresh this to actually show the purchase here, right? But I can actually start to visualize what is happening as a whole. Now, if I'm a little bit more on the analytical side and I want to understand, well, how many people, what is the conversion rate? What is actually happening across the board? Well, I can kind of start to overlay those numbers right on top. So I can see, okay, here's how many people went to this registration page and how many, actually went over to my order form and converted. Now, what makes Funnelytics extremely awesome and easy is it's just drag and drop. So what I can do is I can say, okay, yes, this is cool. Here's my strategy. Here's what's working. Here's where the bottlenecks are. Clearly, I can see that people from Google are coming in and moving pretty quickly, and this is good. This traffic is not great. But I want to understand contribution, right? So remember this concept or this idea of, does this particular thing contribute to somebody doing the action I care about, right? So let's assume that I'm trying to get people to this order form. I want to understand very quickly, do any of these ads or this Google organic or affiliates contribute to somebody going over here? I can literally just copy paste like this if I want. I can just connect these two things like this. I can change the type. I'm not going to go into the details of Funnelytics. If you're interested, we can hop on a demo. But by just doing this, I can now just very quickly know how many people came from Google Ads and eventually landed on my order form or eventually made this particular purchase, right? And that's how I can start to explain to my client, here's what's contributing to the actual results. I can see my spend, I can see my revenue, and I can just start tying it back in this really cool visual way. Now,
is there data you can manually add to this? Because I'm assuming this is pulling from platforms like Google and Facebook, but let's just say a metric like if you had an appointment setter who is tracking their positive replies, that has to be manually tracked by a human. Could a step of this be a manually reported data point?
So if that's going to happen, it's going to usually happen in, let's say, your CRM, right? So let's say what would happen is in my I don't know if you guys use High Level or if you guys use HubSpot.
Yep.
What I would do is move somebody to a stage, or I would add a field inside of their contact. Now Funnelytics will pull that data back and you'll be able to see it inside of Funnelytics. So whatever happens in your CRM is where we do it. So that way you're not sitting here basically inputting something in your CRM, then logging into Funnelytics and manually inputting something over here. You're just basically doing it, and it'll pull that data and it'll tie it back to that individual person. Because what I don't care about is just numbers. What I care about are people. So that's why everything I see here is a person. Funnelytics tracks people, not just page views or individual data points. So I know that from my Google ads, out of 61 people who clicked on my Google ads, that one of them ended up on my order form, right? But there were 4,000 people who landed on my order form. Now, the cool thing with Funnelytics is I can actually drag forwards and backwards to understand where did these people go? Where did they come from? So I can start to map forwards and backwards, what happened and where these people went afterwards. And that's how I can start to kind of create this really cool flow like this, where I want to know, out of all of my purchases, what were the paths that people took? And now imagine going to your client and being like, here's what I've done. I've mapped your entire strategy and your entire website. This is the one thing you care about. So what we've done is we've just looked at how are people getting here? What are they doing? What are the paths that they're taking? And now what we can do is basically say, hey, if we were to drive more over here, we're building a feature right now where it's the ability for you to forecast and to basically say, okay, well, this is 44, right? If I'm able to bring that up to 500, assuming all of these conversions stay the same, how much more money would I make, right? Or my conversion rate right here is, from this page, 18,000 people visited this page, 11% went through over to this page. If I'm able to bring that up to 20%, how much more money do I make down here, assuming that 10% still buy, right? So just being able to communicate that to our clients retains them, because now they understand when I show them this document that basically says, hey, here's our CPL and here's our how much revenue we've made. Like, that's all good and fine, but it doesn't help communicate what we're going to do next and why. If I'm able to show my client, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to run we're going to test a new page here with this headline in this video. And the reason we're doing that is because we think that it's going to increase this conversion rate by this. And if we're able to do this, this is how much more money you make. So we're going to be spending the next 4 weeks building this and launching this. Which client is going to say, yeah, no, don't do that?
The dumb client.
Exactly. Right?
It's so valuable to help them just validate other parts of their marketing that may or may not be working. Like, so many people get caught up when they're doing outreach. Oh, what if they're already doing marketing? It's like, how do you know if what they're doing is even working? How do they even know if what they're doing is working? But giving them something like this, we talk about like differentiating yourself, not being a commodity, like making a really sticky offer that is painful to cancel. This, without question, falls into that category, right? This makes it really painful to leave, because then it's like, shit, if I fire my marketing agency, even if they're not doing all these other marketing things for me, then I totally lose this oversight. So I love this. This is an amazing platform. And I selfishly have my own questions about this, which I'll reserve for another time. But in respect of everyone's time on this show and just making sure we keep this succinct, where can people go to get started? If you're cool, unless you have one more thing you wanted to kind of break down here. I saw you pulled this up.
Yeah, I'll just mention this because as an agency, it's always our job to figure out how do we best report and how do we best kind of communicate to clients. And one of the
Right.
things that again I'm trying to always visualize or communicate to my clients is, well, how are things working? And the way that you should always be phrasing your reports is in this frame of contribution. How does X contribute to Y? Right? This is the best way for you to start to explain to your client that if we spent all of this money building or writing blogs, did they contribute to actual signups? If I spent this money building a video or creating ads or whatever it may be, how is that contributing to the result that I care about, right? So for example, I have a report here. We use kind of these slides and you can export these or send these as a view only link to your clients, but how are my cold traffic sources contributing to signups? And then I can write my insights over here, some key actions of what we're going to do. Right now I have a comparison mode on, so I can see like November, this date range versus the previous date range. And I can see, you know what, it's all green other than my conversions over here, but overall it's all green. We're pretty good. I could see maybe YouTube has gone down or Facebook has gone down. So my key actions is to improve Facebook, right?
Wow, this is built inside of Funnelytics. This isn't an actual deck. I'm trying to connect the dots in my brain of what I'm looking at, but these are live accounts or examples at least.
This is in Funnelytics. So these are
That's awesome.
slides that you build in Funnelytics. You have the notes.
Wow. Okay, cool. Very cool.
I can send this like this. Imagine like this is the frame that your client opens up. How are paid Google ads broken down by campaign contributing to signups? And they don't even need to see the numbers. They need to see green. Hey, it's working. We're sending, Google ads are sending people to this page. That's what we're trying to aim for. It's green. It's working. We'll talk next week. Right? It's makes that conversation here. These ones aren't working, so we're going to make some tweaks to these ones. But overall, it's green and it's actually contributing and it's making sense, right? So
and do you dictate that KPI? Sorry to cut you off. Like of what's green versus yellow versus red, you can kind of tell the system what to interpret as red, yellow, green.
You can tell the system as to what is red, yellow, green, and you can also again, when we're building our forecasting feature, so now you'll be able to communicate to clients and say, here's our current number, here's our target, we're on pace, we're not on pace, we're red, yellow, green from that standpoint as well.
It's awesome.
Cool,
man. Yeah, this is amazing. Like I said, selfishly, because we're doing a massive marketing blitz in POD now. This looks like something that would be super helpful, not only for us, but anyone just trying to get better results for their clients or their agency. So really appreciate the time. And for anyone here watching live hangout or on the replay or on the podcast, where can people go to find out more information, learn more, get signed up and get a demo?
Yeah, go to funnelytics.io. And you can kind of start a free trial there. There's also a button there for you to have a demo with our team. And we'll kind of walk you guys through exactly how you can use this for your business and for your clients.
Cool. Awesome. Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for the time. Everyone else, Alex, take it away, sir.
We'll put the link in the show notes for everyone so you can grab it really easily. Definitely strongly advise checking this out. I think the use case for everyone on the retention side and also improving your internal operation for fulfillment is extremely valuable. So, Mikael, I really appreciate you setting this up and making this happen. Enrique, thank you for connecting us to make this happen. For everyone else, we do this show every single week, 3:15 p.m. Eastern, having amazing guests like Mikael share this amazing insight, and we will see you on the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody.